I stood there in the cold Denver church, my eyes fixed on two polished walnut coffins. My parents lay inside them, still breathless. I'm Darwin Mercer, 32 years old, just an ordinary carpenter who builds tables, chairs, and cabinets for other people's cozy homes. And now I was staring at the two wooden boxes that held the people who gave me life and raised me. They had died in a horrific accident on R70. A semi-truck lost control in a blizzard and plowed straight into their car. Just like that, their lives ended and mine shattered. I remember the moment I got the news as if it were carved into me. It was an ordinary Wednesday morning. I was in the workshop, hammer in hand, nailing shelves together. The steady thud of the hammer, the fresh smell of wood, and I was thinking about dinner that night with Reagan and our little girl Alma. Then the phone rang. Unknown number. Something told me to answer. A man's voice, a police officer. "Mr. Mercer, I'm very sorry to inform you. Your parents were in an accident on Route 70. They didn't survive." The hammer slipped from my hand and hit the floor with a dull thud. My heart stopped. I ran out of the shop, jumped into my old truck, and floored it toward the hospital. The snowy Denver streets blurred past the windshield, but all I could feel was terror gnawing at me. "No way," I kept muttering. "Not my parents. They're healthy. Dad promised to teach me how to build that new rocking chair this weekend." But when I got there were only two white sheets covering motionless bodies. Dad, his kind face now twisted by injuries. Mom beside him, the hands that had held me through every childhood nightmare, now still forever. I collapsed to the hospital floor, tears pouring out uncontrollably. Why? Why them? The days that followed were hell. I had to handle everything. Identifying the bodies, death certificates, choosing coffins, arranging the funeral. I barely ate or slept. Breakfast was a cold cup of coffee. At night, I just fell onto the bed, my mind spinning with images of them. I called my in-laws, Quentin and Bianca Warren, people who had always looked down on me because I was just a carpenter, not the rich businessman they wanted for their daughter. "Sorry, Darwin, we're really busy," Quentin said dryly over the phone. "Work is overwhelming. We won't be able to make it." Bianca added, "You handle it. We send our condolences." Condolences? That was it? I called Reagan, my wife. She sighed with annoyance, as if I were bothering her. "I'll be late," she said, voice flat. My chest tightened, but I swallowed the anger. I had to focus on giving my parents a proper send-off. The funeral day arrived. The church was solemn with white flowers and flickering candles. I stood at the front in my old black suit, trying to hold myself together. People came, placed flowers, bowed their heads. Neighbors whispered, "Poor Darwin, losing both parents at once." Friends patted my shoulder. "Hang in there, man. It'll be okay." But the more I looked around, the emptier it felt. Not a single person from Reagan's family. No Quentin, no Bianca. None of her siblings. Just me, standing alone in a sea of grief. Will they even show up to my father's funeral? I wondered, heart pounding with a mix of hope and anger. This was supposed to be when family came together, but I felt like an orphan. Everyone was praying, the pastor's gentle voice echoing, "The Lord will shelter their souls." Suddenly, the church doors burst open with a loud creak. Cold wind and snow rushed in. I turned, heart leaping. Reagan walked in, face twisted in a scowl, arms crossed. She wore a black coat, but her expression was that of someone dragged to a boring meeting. Not a single tear, not a trace of sorrow. She marched straight down the aisle, high heels clicking sharply on the stone floor, drawing stares. For a fleeting second, I hoped against all reason that she would walk to the coffins, touch them, whisper goodbye. But no. She came straight to me, pulled a document from her purse and shoved it hard against my chest. Her voice rang out cold and loud enough for people nearby to turn. "Here's the divorce papers. I want this over. Sign it, Darwin." I froze, taking several seconds to even process the words. "Reagan, this is my parents' funeral. What are you saying?" She stared at me without blinking, eyes empty and chilling. "I've been thinking about this for a long time. This marriage ended for me long ago. My heart clenched. My voice cracked with disbelief and pain. Reagan, right now, in front of everyone here, you choose this moment to tell me? She gripped her purse strap tighter, voice growing colder. Darwin, don't make this more awkward than it already is. I don't want to drag out a relationship that's been dead for years. The rage inside me exploded, every ounce of restraint shattered. A dead relationship? My parents haven't even been laid to rest and you say this here? In one uncontrollable second, my hand swung. The slap rang out sharp and clear in the silent church. Reagan stumbled back a step, clutching her cheek, eyes blazing with hatred and contempt. A low-class nobody like you has no right to touch me. She turned and walked straight out, heels clicking, without a single glance back. The church doors slammed shut behind her. I stood frozen between the two coffins, surrounded by shocked faces. Whispers erupted. My God, how could this happen? Poor Darwin. Right at the funeral. She's heartless. Some were angry on my parents' behalf. To do that at their funeral. She has no soul. And I stood there in the eye of the storm, mind blank, legs trembling, fighting not to collapse. The image of Reagan disappearing through those doors cut deeper than any knife. Why? How did my life turn into this? I took a deep breath, clenched my shaking hands, and swallowed the rage. I couldn't fall apart now. My parents were still lying there. They deserved a proper goodbye. They were the only two people who had never turned their backs on me. I turned back, continued the service, voice trembling as I read the eulogy. People slowly filed out, leaving me alone with the two coffins and a grief heavier than I had ever known. After the funeral, I didn't drive back to the rented house I shared with Reagan, the place now echoing only with the sound of betrayal. Instead, I turned the other way, toward my parents' old house on the outskirts of Denver. That was where I grew up, where every brick and plank of wood was soaked in their presence. I needed that place now, needed even the illusion of warmth in the middle of this blizzard. My battered old truck crawled along the snow-blanketed road. The wind howled through the cracked window, icy air biting into my skin, but I felt nothing except emptiness. I whispered to myself, knuckles white on the steering wheel. Mom, Dad, what do I do now? The image of Reagan shoving the divorce papers into my chest inside the church still haunted me, a wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. She had once been everything. The woman I met in a bar when I was 25 with a radiant smile and a promise. I'll always be by your side. And now, a slap, a sneer, and she was gone. Where was Alma, our little girl? With her mother? With her grandparents? I didn't dare think too far ahead. The thought alone threatened to crush me. The familiar road appeared, lined with snow-laden pines. My parents' house sat at the end of the quiet street, a simple, cozy wooden bungalow. I parked, killed the engine, and sat motionless for a moment, staring at the front door. The last time I was here, just a week ago, Dad had been on the porch fixing the lawnmower while Mom brought out hot tea. "You're home, Darwin?" she would say with her gentle smile. Now there was nothing. I took a deep breath, stepped out, keys still in my coat pocket. When the door opened, the familiar scent of wood hit me like a wave of memories. Warm walnut mixed with furniture polish, the smell of afternoons when Dad sharpened tools on the porch and Mom slowly dusted every surface. Everything was exactly as they had left it, warm, tidy, painfully peaceful. Not a speck of dust, not an object out of place, as if they had only stepped out for a moment and would walk back in any second. I closed the door and stood in the entryway, heart pounding. The living room lay before me, with the old sofa Dad loved to stretch out on while reading the paper. I walked in, brushed my fingers across the back of the couch, feeling the familiar rough fabric. My eyes stung as I whispered his name. That sofa had seen countless evenings of the three of us watching TV together. Dad telling stories of his younger days as a carpenter while Mom chuckled softly. I moved on to the kitchen. The wooden cabinets Mom polished every morning still gleamed as if freshly varnished yesterday. I opened one and saw the porcelain mugs lined up neatly. Tears suddenly spilled over. Mom always said, A clean house makes a light heart, son. The house was spotless, but my heart was heavier than ever. Every corner stirred a memory, each one a knife in the chest. In the living room corner hung the family photo by the entryway, the three of us grinning beside a lake last summer. I touched the glass, fingers trembling. Why did you have to leave so soon? I never even got to say thank you properly. Memories flooded back. Dad teaching me to build my first shelf when I was 12. I was clumsy with the saw, cutting crooked lines everywhere. He never scolded me, just smiled. Try again, son. A man has to be patient. We worked all afternoon sweating through our shirts, but the joy when it was finished was indescribable. Winter nights gathered around the fireplace, logs crackling, Mom placing a mug of hot cocoa in my hands. My boy has to be strong. Life isn't always easy. Those words echoed now like prophecy. Strong? All I wanted was to collapse. I started cleaning even though the house was already immaculate. I wiped the kitchen table, straightened books on the shelf, blinking back tears each time I touched something familiar. The hand-embroidered tablecloth Mom had made, flowers stitched clumsily but with love. I ran my fingers over it, remembering evenings she sat under the lamp sewing while Dad read beside her. Get married, give me grandchildren to hold, she used to tease. Alma was their granddaughter, but they never got to hold her enough. I dusted the bookshelf and found the adventure novel Dad had been reading, bookmarks still in place as if he'd just stepped away for a moment. I'll finish it for you, Dad, I whispered, voice breaking. The more I cleaned, the deeper the pain grew, yet I couldn't stop. This was my last way to be close to them. I walked down the hallway, fingers brushing the wood paneling Dad had installed himself. The faint scent of wood still lingered, reminding me of leaner years. Our old house had been small, but it was always filled with laughter. Then I reached my parents' bedroom, and the silence was so complete it stopped me cold. The room felt frozen in time. Bed perfectly made, blankets neatly folded, curtains half drawn. Everything exactly where they had last touched it. I sat on the edge of the bed, running my hand over the sheet. Mom's faint lavender perfume still hung in the air. I opened Dad's bedside drawer, hoping for some small comfort. Inside were simple things. His old ticking watch, silver-rimmed reading glasses, a half-read book with a leaf bookmark. I picked them up with trembling hands. They still felt warm from his touch. At the bottom lay a neat, yellowed folder. Curious, I opened it and froze. It was both their life insurance policies. Total value, over $1 million. Sole beneficiary, Darwin Mercer. My heart skipped a beat, then pounded like a war drum. What is this? I whispered, staring at the numbers. They had bought the policies years ago, paying premiums faithfully even when money was tight. Reason written on the attached note, so our son can have a better future. The words blurred as tears fell uncontrollably. My whole body shook, a dam of grief and awe breaking inside me. Pain for how far ahead they had planned, and overwhelming love that they were still protecting me even after they were gone. Why didn't you tell me? Why keep it secret? I broke down sobbing, the sound echoing in the silent room. Beautiful memories crashed over me like a flood. Mom hugging me when I fell off my bike at 10, wiping blood and kissing my forehead. It's okay, sweetheart. Mommy's here. Dad standing in the rain, waiting after a late class, soaked but smiling. Finally, there's my boy. I've been waiting. Weekends rebuilding the little kitchen together. Dad with the hammer, Mom mixing lemonade, me handing tools. Lean days when dinner was just bread and jam, yet the table rang with laughter. Family is everything, Dad always said. Now everything was gone, and all that remained was this gift, bought with their lives. I collapsed onto their bed, tears soaking the pillow, Mom's scent wrapping around me like an embrace. I had lost the people I loved most, yet found the final gift they left behind. Exhausted from days of funeral arrangements and the shock of this discovery, my mind spun with images of the accident. Reagan, Alma. What am I supposed to do with this money? I wondered, but no answer came. My eyes grew heavy. I fell asleep right there in the room full of memories, surrounded by the lingering scent of my parents. It was the first time since everything began that I let myself completely fall apart. No more pretending to be strong, no more swallowing tears. I slept deeply, dreaming of Mom and Dad smiling at me by the fireplace. But when I woke the next morning, faint sunlight filtering through the curtains, I knew my life had turned down a new, unknown road. Was this money hope or a burden? How would Reagan react? I didn't know yet, but a mix of anticipation and dread was already rising. The nightmare had only just begun, and I had to face it. The next morning, I woke early and brewed a cup of black coffee the way Dad always did. No sugar, no milk, just strong enough to wake the dead. I walked through the house one last time, a silent goodbye to my parents. The living room was still tidy. Dad's reading chair sat empty, waiting for him to come back and pick up the newspaper. The scent of wood still lingered, as though their breath was caught in the walls. My chest tightened. Tears welled up, but I swallowed them. "Goodbye, Mom. Goodbye, Dad," I whispered as I locked the front door. The click of the lock sounded final, slamming shut an entire chapter of my life. I turned away, walked to the truck, snowflakes settling lightly on my shoulders. The house was now the past, but the memories would live forever. I drove off, heart heavy yet carrying a faint flicker of hope from the insurance folder tucked in my coat. On the way back to the rented house in central Denver, I decided to stop at the insurance company. It was a sleek glass building in the bustling downtown area, a place ordinary carpenters like me rarely entered. My pulse raced as I parked, feeling like I was walking into a high-stakes gamble. Clutching the folder, I stepped up to the reception desk, voice shaky. "I'm here to file a life insurance claim." The young receptionist with a neat bun looked at me with sympathy. "Yes, Mr. Mercer. We'll need to verify the documents. You've lost someone close?" I nodded and briefly told her about the accident, my throat closing up. She photocopied everything, checked signatures, then said, "It'll take a few weeks to process, but the paperwork is complete. You'll get the money soon. Over $1 million, correct?" I nodded again, hoping the final gift my parents left me would help me stand through this storm. It could pay debts, buy a new house, maybe even salvage the marriage if Reagan still had an ounce of feeling left. But deep down I was afraid the money wouldn't buy happiness, only complicate everything. I left the office and drove home, mind spinning with what-ifs. If Reagan found out, would she stay? Or would she just see me as a man who inherited money from the dead? As I turned into our rundown rental neighborhood, old buildings peeling paint, I froze. A gleaming black luxury sedan was parked right by the entrance, a Mercedes, the kind only the truly rich drive. A chill ran through me, a premonition of something awful. "Whose car is that?" I muttered, trying to calm myself. Maybe a neighbor, maybe someone lost. I brushed it off, parked beside it, and pushed open the front door. The smell of cold, uneaten food hit me, but the silence was unnatural. Then I stopped dead. In the living room stood Reagan, my wife, 30 years old, still stunning with golden hair and ice-blue eyes. Next to our 6-year-old daughter, Alma, with her big round eyes and innocent smile. But this was no warm family scene. Suitcases stood packed. Their belongings were neatly stacked as if they were leaving for good. My heart hammered, my limbs went cold. "What's going on? Where are you taking my daughter?" I whispered, already knowing the answer. Panic surged. I rushed forward and pulled Alma into my arms, holding her so tightly I was afraid I'd lose her the moment I let go. She hugged me back, sobbing, "Daddy, I missed you so much." The milky scent of her hair, the warmth of her tiny body, tears threatened to spill. "Shh, it's okay, sweetheart, don't cry," I murmured, kissing her forehead. My eyes burned as I looked at Reagan, voice raw with fury and pain. "Reagan, what are you doing? How can you be this cruel? Leaving me right now? My parents just died. Their funeral was yesterday, and you're packing up like this?" She stood there, face like ice, a stranger wearing the body of the woman I once loved. Arms crossed, she spoke in a flat, emotionless tone. Darwin, this marriage ended for me a long time ago. You need to accept reality. I want a different life, one you can't give me. It felt like a sledgehammer to the chest. I could barely breathe. Is that all it is? Houses, cars, fancy trips? My voice shook. Reagan gave a thin, bitter smile. I'm tired of struggling. I'm done. I clutched Alma tighter, staring straight at her, voice dropping almost to a plea. I can forgive everything. Whatever you've done, I won't bring it up. Just come back. We can start over. Alma needs both her parents. She can't grow up missing one of us. I looked down at our daughter, then back at Reagan, every word choked with desperation. What do you think it'll do to her growing up without me? Alma clung to my shirt, eyes glistening as she looked up at her mother and said in a tiny, clear voice, Mommy, I want to stay with Daddy. But Reagan yanked Alma away without hesitation, even as our daughter screamed and fought not to leave me. Alma, come with Mommy now, she snapped, pulling so hard the little girl stumbled and fell. Alma's wail tore through me. Daddy! Don't let them take me. I'm scared. My heart shattered. I lunged to grab her back, but Reagan shoved me away. Don't touch her. You're not fit to be her father. I collapsed to the floor, tears streaming, voice breaking. Please, Reagan, don't do this. I'm begging you. She didn't even glance back. She dragged Alma toward the door, suitcase wheels rumbling behind her. Outside, a man stepped out of the luxury sedan, none other than Reagan's lover, Orlando Langston. An older man about my father's age, silver-haired, expensive suit, smug grin. He opened the door for Reagan like it had all been rehearsed. She lifted the still sobbing Alma into the car and the Mercedes roared away, leaving only the fading sound of the engine in the freezing air. I stood frozen in the empty house as my entire world collapsed again in the span of seconds. My legs shook, my fists clenched until they drew blood. Alma's cries still echoed in my head like a nightmare I couldn't wake from. Why? How did it come to this? I screamed alone, slamming my fist into the wall until my knuckles bled. The living room was hollow now, carrying only the faint trace of Reagan's perfume, a cruel reminder of betrayal. Memories of our marriage crashed over me like a flood, suffocating me. The happy early days, meeting in a coffee shop, Reagan radiant saying, "You're the man I've always dreamed of." Our wedding night, wrapped in warm blankets, promising forever. The moment Alma was born, holding her for the first time in the hospital, tears of joy. My beautiful girl. Evenings filled with laughter, Alma telling school stories, Reagan kissing me. You're the rock of this family. It had all been my pride, my reason to push through long, exhausting days at the workshop. But then the changes crept in, widening into an unbridgeable chasm. First, the disdain. You're just a carpenter with a pathetic paycheck. How are you supposed to provide for us? Then the comparisons. My friends married rich men with nice cars. What do I have? Coming home late with strange excuses. Emergency work meeting, yet carrying the scent of another man's cologne. Guarding her phone, password locked, never letting me near it. I suspected, but I closed my eyes, believing marriage required trust. The breaking point came a few months ago when I accidentally saw Reagan leaving a luxury downtown hotel, Orlando's arm around her waist, kissing her under the neon lights. My heart stopped. I stood frozen on the street corner, tears rolling down. No way, I thought, but the proof was undeniable. I confronted her at home. She denied everything. You're imagining things. Stop being paranoid. From that day on, our marriage hung by a thread, but I clung to it for Alma's sake. And now, watching the Mercedes disappear down the street, I understood this wasn't just betrayal. It was the bitter, final end to the life I had fought to hold together for 6 years. I collapsed onto the floor, sobbing like a child, hands clutching my head. The house was empty. No more Alma's laughter, no more Reagan's warmth. The future looked pitch black. Parents gone, wife gone, daughter taken. The insurance money now felt like a cruel joke. Could it buy back a family? Pain and dread surged, bracing for even darker days ahead. I lay writhing on the floor, mind spinning with the image of Orlando opening the car door, Reagan carrying away our screaming daughter while I stood powerless. From this day forward, my life would be an endless fight. In that moment of utter despair, I decided to go to my in-laws' house. It was my last hope. Maybe Quentin and Bianca Warren would talk some sense into Reagan, or at least offer me a shred of comfort. They were her parents. They had to care about their own granddaughter, didn't they? I drove to their lavish home in Denver's wealthiest suburb, a place where I always felt out of place in my dusty carpenter clothes. The massive wooden door opened, and Quentin, tall, silver-haired, always in a suit, stared at me with ice-cold eyes. Bianca stood behind him, perfectly made up, not a hint of a smile. "Darwin, what are you doing here?" Quentin asked, voice dry as dust. I stepped into their sprawling living room, leather furniture, expensive art on the walls, and tried to keep my voice steady. "Sir, Reagan left. She's gone with Orlando. Please talk to her. Convince her to come back, for Alma's sake." But the moment I finished telling them what happened, their faces twisted with anger. Quentin slammed his fist on the glass coffee table. The bang made me flinch. "You couldn't keep your wife and now you come whining here? You low-class, useless failure. Reagan has suffered enough dragging herself through life with you. You think you deserve her?" His words hit like knives. I stood frozen, stammering, "But she cheated and she took my daughter." He cut me off. "Cheating? She didn't cheat. You should blame yourself for never being able to provide. Reagan is my daughter. She deserves a better life than scraping by with a carpenter like you." Bianca was even colder, arms crossed, voice flat as a verdict. "Darwin, know your place. Reagan deserves a real man and a real life. You have nothing left to keep her. Stop this pointless clinging." No sympathy, no pity. They looked at me like a beggar, a discarded thing. My chest constricted, humiliation burned through me. "But Alma is your granddaughter. She needs me." Quentin pointed at the door. "Get out, and don't ever come back. We want nothing to do with you." They threw me out. The door slammed behind me. I stood on their doorstep, snowflakes drifting down, tears freezing on my cheeks. A humiliation I had never known made my legs shake, as if someone had kicked me straight in the chest. How can they do this? Their family. I drove home, mind in chaos, heart pounding with worry about Alma. Where was she? Was she crying? The days that followed, I buried myself in work from dawn till dark to numb the pain. The workshop became my refuge. The steady thud of the hammer, the scream of the saw, the smell of fresh wood helped me forget for a few hours. I worked like a madman, building tables, cabinets, shelves, until my hands were calloused and bleeding. But every evening, returning to the empty house, Alma's cries and the image of Reagan walking away stabbed me like needles. The living room was silent, no childish laughter, no smell of Reagan's cooking. I sat on the couch, clutching Alma's stuffed bear, tears falling. "Baby girl, Daddy misses you so much." Sleepless nights staring at the ceiling, anxiously waiting for news from the lawyer. Divorce was coming, but what about Alma? I called Reagan every day. She blocked my number. The pain piled higher. I wanted to collapse, but I gritted my teeth. For her, I have to keep going. Exactly 1 month after the funeral, the life insurance payout, over $1 million from my parents, landed in my account. I got the bank notification and sat staring at the screen, numb. The balance had jumped to exactly $1.2 million. My heart clenched. Gratitude and agony twisted together at the terrible price of that money. "Mom, Dad, thank you," I whispered through tears. It was the final shield they left me, bought with quiet sacrifices I never knew about. I remembered lean meals, the way they quietly gave up their own wants just to save for your future, son. Now that future had arrived, but they weren't here to see it. I sat frozen, lost in thought. Pay off debts, buy a house, use it to fight for Alma. But beneath every plan, the pain remained untouched. Money couldn't bring my parents back, and it hadn't yet brought my daughter back into my arms. 2 weeks later, the mediation session was held at the Denver family courthouse. I arrived early in my old suit, clutching financial documents, clinging to the fragile hope that love and the insurance money I had just received might still fix everything. My heart pounded as I entered the cold room with its wooden tables and hard chairs. Reagan walked in looking relaxed and confident, expensive dress, hair in an elegant bun, flanked by her own lawyer. She glanced at me once, eyes full of contempt, as if I were a stranger. The judge, a middle-aged woman, asked, "Mr. Mercer, what do you wish to say at this mediation?" I spoke, voice shaking but sincere. "Your Honor, I want to rebuild my family. I love my wife and my daughter. I'm ready to forgive everything. The affair, the betrayal. I just received over $1 million from my parents' life insurance. I'm willing to use every cent for their future if Reagan will come back. For Alma's sake, Your Honor." I looked at Reagan, desperately hoping for a flicker of feeling. She just shook her head coldly. "No, Your Honor. This marriage is over. I don't need that money. My future will be far richer than that. I request divorce and full custody of Alma." Her words were a knife. All my efforts crumbled instantly. I sat frozen, gripping the chair, tears threatening. "Reagan, how can you—" She didn't even look at me, just smiled at her lawyer. The mediation ended with no agreement, leaving me with even heavier pain. The following month was hell. I texted, called, emailed, long pleading messages begging for reconciliation. "I'll fix everything, just come back for Alma." I sent old photos, happy memories, hoping to stir something in her. No response. Finally, she blocked every way I tried to reach her, severing the last thread of hope. I sat alone in the silent house, staring at a dead phone, heart shattered. Alma, what do I do now? Those nights I dreamed of her crying for me, waking drenched in sweat, dreading the final court date. When the official custody hearing came, the courtroom was packed with lawyers and witnesses. I told the court about the massive inheritance and my love for my daughter. "Your Honor, I have over $1 million to provide for Alma. I'm her father and I love her more than anything. Please grant me custody." But my unsteady carpenter's income was painted as unstable. Low wages, irregular hours. Reagan's lawyer smirked. "Mr. Mercer is only a carpenter. How can he possibly provide?" Reagan, backed by Orlando Langston's vast wealth, sat confidently. Orlando was in the gallery, gleaming suit, testifying, "I will give Reagan and Alma everything. A mansion, the best schools, round-the-clock security." Reagan nodded. "I can provide a far more stable life than he ever could." The judge ruled full custody to Reagan. The words hit like thunder. I could barely stand as I left the courtroom, legs shaking, hand braced against the wall. It felt as if my entire world had just fallen into a bottomless abyss, parents gone, wife gone, daughter gone. The last light in my life had gone out. I dragged myself home, my mind spinning with images of Alma, my little girl with her chubby cheeks and ringing laughter. She now belonged to Reagan and Orlando, the two people who had stolen everything from me. I pictured her crying for her daddy in the night, and I couldn't reach her. I slammed the door and collapsed onto the floor. My phone buzzed, a text from Reagan. My heart pounded. I opened it with a desperate flicker of hope that she had regretted everything, but no. Just a short, cold message. "We're moving to Arizona. Don't look for us or bother us again. It's over." That was all. No questions, no mercy. The words cut deeper than the judge's ruling. I realized I hadn't only lost custody, I had been brutally stripped of even the right to visit my own daughter. Reagan was cutting me out completely, taking Alma far away, as if erasing me from her life forever. "How can you do this to me?" I roared, punching the wall until my knuckles bled. Tears poured down. My whole body shook. The pain was so enormous I could barely breathe. I sat there staring at the dark phone screen, desperately waiting for a follow-up apology that never came. Only dead silence. I sank into despair and turned to alcohol to make it all disappear. At first it was just one glass of whiskey to dull the ache, but day after day I drank until I blacked out. I woke with a pounding head, grabbed a bottle from the fridge and drank instead of coffee. Work? I abandoned it. In the workshop, my hands shook so badly I couldn't hold a hammer straight. Nails went in crooked. Colleagues whispered, "Darwin, what's wrong with you? Go home and rest." I went home, opened another bottle, drank until I passed out on the floor. Those nights I dreamed Alma ran into my arms only to wake up to an empty room. Every doorbell or phone ring sent my heart racing. Was it news about my daughter? But it was never anything, just the wind howling. One night, drunk and lost, I drove without thinking and ended up at my parents' old house. The truck swerved on the snowy roads, headlights cutting through the darkness. I didn't know where I was going until I found myself parked in front of the familiar place, the porch light still on from the motion sensor. I didn't dare go inside. I felt too pathetic, a drunk, jobless failure who had lost everything. I just sat on the freezing porch, snowflakes settling on my coat, wondering how disappointed Mom and Dad would be. "Mom, Dad, I've become a drunk," I whispered, tears freezing on my cheeks. The porch was ice cold, wind whistling through the cracks, but warm memories flooded back like a torrent. Every memory of my parents came alive. When I was little and bullied at school, Dad sat beside me, hand on my shoulder. "Son, get back up. Never let anyone keep you down." Mom hugged me and wiped my tears. Life can be cruel, but if you're strong enough, it can't break you. They're constant lessons about resilience, about never giving up no matter what. Those memories shone a harsh light on the wreck I had become. A grown man curled up drunk on a porch with nothing left but pain. I remembered one afternoon fixing the porch roof with Dad. The sun blazed down. He was sweating, hammer in hand. "A man can be poor in money or luck, but he must never be poor in will. Fall where you stand, then stand up again, son." Those words rang in my head like a wake-up slap, sharp and clear in the dead of night. Suddenly I snapped awake. I slapped myself hard across the face, twice, cheeks burning, trying to jolt the man I used to be out of the ruin of grief and failure. The sharp cracks echoed in the quiet night and brought me fully alert. "I can't go on like this," I growled, tears stopping. I clenched my fists and swore to my parents I would not stay broken, would not drift any further, that I would rise again and become the son they could be proud of. "I promise, Mom, Dad. I'll start over." I stood up, legs still shaking, but the will had returned. I drove home, mind clearer than it had been in months, heart racing with a new plan. This was the turning point. From the ashes, I would be reborn. The very next day, I went back to the rented house and started planning a new life with the untouched insurance money. Over $1 million sat in the account, a reminder from my parents. I chose the path of investing even though I had zero experience, only determination burning inside me. "Investing? Are you crazy, Darwin?" "You're a carpenter," I asked myself, pulse racing with nerves. But I remembered Dad's words. Learning is the key. I bought books on finance and the stock market, The Richest Man in Babylon, The Intelligent Investor by Warren Buffett. I spent hours in front of the computer watching YouTube videos, taking free online courses on stocks and ETFs. At first, my head spun with unfamiliar terms. I studied day and night, sleeping only 4 or 5 hours, living on strong black coffee instead of meals. "You can do this, Darwin," I told myself, hands trembling as I opened my first brokerage account. Then I started investing, small amounts at first, a few thousand into blue-chip stocks like Apple and Microsoft. My heart pounded when I hit buy, terrified and exhilarated, and miraculously the market rose. I made steady gains, 5%, 10%, then 20% in just a few months. "I've found a way out," I thought, the first real smile in months breaking across my face. 4 years passed. My investment portfolio reached $15 million. I could hardly believe it. From a jobless, heartbroken carpenter to a multi-millionaire. I moved into a beautiful house in a quiet Denver suburb, leaving behind the place filled with painful memories to begin a new life. The new house was spacious, with a garden and a dedicated office where I tracked the markets every morning. I bought a new car, dressed sharply but never extravagantly, remembering Dad's words, "Money is a tool, not the goal." Life had changed beyond imagination. I joined investment groups, made friends with successful people, even donated to charities for orphaned children. Yet no matter how much time passed, the ache for Alma never faded. Every evening as I sat alone by the fireplace, I still wondered how my daughter had grown, how she was living, and whether she still remembered the father who loved her more than his own life. One ordinary afternoon, I was sitting in my office reviewing my investment portfolio. The spacious room with a walnut desk I'd built myself, computer screens glowing with green and red stock charts. When the phone rang unexpectedly. Unknown number, unfamiliar area code, not Denver, not even Colorado. The ringing was insistent, urgent, sending an icy shiver down my spine. My heart raced. A vague dread rose inside me. "Who could this be?" I muttered, hand trembling slightly as I picked up. For the past 4 years, I'd rarely gotten calls from unknown numbers. My new life was Zoom meetings with partners, not surprises like this. I glanced at the screen. Arizona area code. My heart stopped. Arizona, where Reagan had taken Alma. Adrenaline surged. I answered, voice hoarse. "This is Darwin." "Who's this?" Instantly, I heard a child's voice, breathless and shaking, trying to hold back terror. The words came in broken, sobbing gasps. In a single second, I knew it was Alma, my daughter, older now, but unmistakably her voice, the one I heard in my dreams every night. My heart froze, then pounded like war drums. "Alma? Baby? Is that you?" I whispered, voice cracking, tears welling up. 4 years without hearing her, and now it came, not joyful laughter, but panicked, desperate sobs. Her voice was frantic, interrupted by hiccuping cries. "Daddy, help me. They're hitting me. The address is 245 Oak Street, Flagstaff. Please save me." The word "save me" stretched out in pure despair like a scream from the bottom of a pit. Then the line went dead, cold, mechanical beeps. I sat frozen, phone still pressed to my ear, brain struggling to process what I'd just heard. "Alma! My little girl is being beaten?" Horror crashed over me like a tidal wave, sweeping away all rational thought. My whole body went numb, my heart squeezed so tight I could barely breathe. Fatherly instinct overpowered fear and calculation. I didn't think about laws or risks, only my daughter in pain needing her dad. Reagan and Orlando, what had they done to my child? Rage and terror exploded inside me. Adrenaline surged, making my limbs shake, but my actions decisive. Without a second thought, I bolted from the room, grabbed my keys and coat, slammed the door behind me, jumped into my new SUV, and floored it toward Flagstaff, Arizona, the address my daughter had managed to gasp out. The I-70 flew beneath the wheels, but all I saw was Alma's terrified face. My heart felt ready to burst. I sped far over the limit, headlights flashing in the fading light. "Hold on, baby, Daddy's coming," I muttered, tears streaming down my face. The drive was over 10 hours, but I didn't stop, only pulled into gas stations to fill the tank and buy water to stay awake. My mind spun with memories. Tiny Alma falling asleep in my arms, whispering, "Daddy's my superhero." And now she was in some kind of hell, being beaten. I pictured Orlando, that 70-year-old bastard, swinging at her, and fury boiled inside me. And did Reagan know? Was she part of it? Every mile on the winding mountain roads, wind howling past, my anxiety spiked. "Just keep my baby safe," I prayed, gripping the wheel until my knuckles went white. Night fell. Stars glittered over the Arizona sky. But I never looked up, only at the GPS, 245 Oak Street, Flagstaff. A quiet residential neighborhood, but to me it was a battlefield. When I arrived, it was late. The streets were silent under dim orange streetlights. I parked a block away, killed the headlights, and ran straight to the house, a modern luxury villa, lights still on inside. My heart pounded so hard I could barely breathe. I crept to the front window, hiding behind bushes. The scene inside hit me like a nightmare. Orlando was swinging a leather belt across Alma's back, roaring drunken curses. "You little brat, this is how I teach you." His voice was thick with alcohol. Alma, my daughter, now 10 years old, taller, thinner, was curled up, arms over her head, taking the blows in silence, only weak, stifled sobs escaping. My blood boiled, vision blurred with rage. Reagan stood right there, arms crossed, watching her own child being beaten as if it were nothing. She even scolded, "You deserve it. Behave or you'll get more." Not a single move to stop it, not a trace of mercy. My heart shattered. This was her mother? The woman I once loved? For 1 second I froze in shock, but then pure fury detonated inside me. I charged the front door and kicked it in with all my strength. The wooden door exploded off its hinges, shards flying everywhere, the whole room shaking from the impact. Orlando spun around, drunk and red-faced, too slow to react before my fist smashed into his face. The punch sent him reeling into the wall, dazed, blood pouring from his nose. "Who the hell are you to break into my house?" he snarled, clutching his face. I didn't answer, only saw red. Reagan went white as a ghost, stunned that I had appeared so suddenly. Her eyes were wide with shock and fury at being caught in the act. "Darwin, how are you here?" she stammered. Orlando roared and charged like a wounded animal, swinging the belt. We crashed together, fists, furniture, chaos. He grabbed my collar and landed a punch to my stomach, but I, fueled by years of carpentry muscle and blind rage, shoved him backward over the dining table, glass and wood shattering. "You dare hit my daughter!" I bellowed, raining blows on his face. Reagan screamed from the sidelines, "Are you insane? Get out of our house or I'm calling the police." But she backed away, terrified of the rage she had never seen in the gentle husband she once knew. The fight lasted only minutes, blood, heavy breathing, destruction, until Alma's desperate, broken cry cut through everything. "Daddy, stop, please!" That sound tore the world in half. I instantly let go of Orlando and rushed to my daughter, pulling her trembling body into my arms. She shook violently, small and terrified, curling into me. I held her tight, tears streaming. "I'm here, baby. Daddy's got you. It's over." The smell of her hair, the warmth of her little body, everything I had lost for 4 long years flooded back. In that moment, I knew, if I had been even minutes later, my daughter might never have had another chance to call for help. The moment the room fell silent after the struggle, police sirens suddenly pierced the night outside, sharp and slicing through the darkness. Red and blue lights swept across the windows, flashing across the walls, making all 3 of us, me, Reagan, and Orlando, spin toward the sound in shock. My heart lurched. Who called the police? Reagan. Or a neighbor who heard the noise? Alma trembled harder in my arms, whispering, "Daddy, the police are here?" I held her tighter, murmuring, "It's okay, sweetheart. Daddy's right here." Orlando staggered to his feet, wiping blood from his nose, face twisted in pain. "Damn it, the cops are here." Reagan stepped back, hand over her mouth, eyes darting as if calculating her story. The sirens grew louder, then stopped right outside. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. This could be salvation, or a bigger disaster. Alma had secretly called me, but now the police were here. Everything could change. Tension surged. I pulled Alma closer, ready to protect her at any cost. 2 officers entered through the shattered front door, hands resting on their holsters, eyes scanning the room quickly. The taller one, broad-shouldered with a thick beard, barked, "Flagstaff Police. We received a report of a physical altercation, screaming and a child crying at this address. Everyone stay where you are." The younger female officer shone a flashlight across the scene. They took in the wrecked living room, overturned furniture, glittering shards of glass, the leather belt lying on the floor beside Orlando. Then their eyes landed on me, cradling a sobbing, shaking little girl, and the 2 bloodied, disheveled adults nearby. My heart pounded so hard I could barely breathe, waiting for their reaction. The male officer stepped forward, voice firm. "Everyone separate now. Hands where I can see them. Explain exactly what happened." His hand stayed near his gun. Reagan panicked, face ashen, stammering, "Officers!" He broke in. He attacked us. Orlando, eyes bulging with rage, roared, "That's right! Arrest him. He's a home invader." I kept Alma pressed against my chest, shielding her, and spoke as calmly as I could despite my shaking voice. "I'm her father. My daughter called me begging for help. I got here and found her being abused. I just want to get her out of here." The female officer approached, her expression softening when she saw Alma. "Is the little girl okay?" "Let us see." Reluctantly, I loosened my grip a little, still keeping a protective arm around her shoulders. They ordered us all to separate and give statements. I told them everything as calmly as possible. Alma's desperate call, her crying for help over the phone, what I saw through the window. Orlando whipping her with the belt while Reagan watched and scolded. My voice broke as I described it. She called me sobbing for help. I burst in and saw him hitting my daughter with that belt. Her own mother just stood there, yelling at her. I couldn't stand by and do nothing. I pointed to the fresh welts on Alma's back, tears rolling down my face. The male officer took notes, face grim. "You're the biological father. ID." I pulled out my wallet, driver's license, Alma's birth certificate, documents I'd carried for years, somehow sensing one day I'd need them. They checked quickly and nodded. Orlando and Reagan kept shouting over each other. Orlando, face swollen, pointed at me. "He broke into my house, attacked me for no reason. We were just disciplining the kid. She sneaked a phone call and disobeyed." Reagan nodded frantically, avoiding Alma's eyes. "Exactly, officers. We're her legal parents. He, my ex-husband, broke in and assaulted Orlando. We were defending ourselves." She tried to force a smile, but her face was ghost white, hands shaking. I stared at her, heart breaking. "Discipline? With a belt? And you just watched while your own daughter was beaten?" The female officer cut in. "Quiet. We'll hear one at a time." They didn't fully trust anyone. Suspicion filled their eyes as they surveyed the scene. They began taking formal statements. Me first, then Reagan, then Orlando. I recounted everything in detail, voice steady but emotional. The frantic drive from Denver, Alma's broken call for help. She begged me to save her. I'm her dad. I had to come. They photographed the scene, camera flashes capturing the overturned furniture, blood on the floor, the twisted belt. "Bag this," the male officer said, slipping the belt into an evidence bag with gloved hands. Then they asked Alma to step aside for examination. My heart clenched as I let her go. "Sweetheart, tell the officers the truth. Daddy's right here. You don't have to be afraid." The female officer gently led Alma to the corner, voice soft. "Just tell me what happened, honey." Alma cried, voice tiny. "Mr. Orlando hit me with the belt because I called my dad. Mommy just watched." When the officer lifted Alma's shirt, her arms, back, and shoulders were covered in fresh red welts and older purple bruises. I looked and felt my heart shatter. Tears poured down. "My God, my little girl. You monsters." The female officer's jaw tightened with anger. She signaled her partner. "Photograph everything. This is clear child abuse." The camera flashed repeatedly, documenting every mark. Orlando muttered, "It was just discipline." But they ignored him, eyes cold. Immediately, they informed Reagan and Orlando they were being taken to the station for questioning regarding child abuse and domestic disturbance. The male officer ordered, "You two are coming with us. Cooperate." Orlando, reeking of alcohol, cursed and resisted. "You damn cops. I'm Orlando Langston. I've got money. You can't touch me." He shoved the officer. In seconds, he was slammed to the floor, arm twisted behind him, handcuffs clicking. "Resisting arrest? That's another charge." Reagan stood frozen, face drained of color, eyes wild as Orlando was subdued. She stammered, "Officers, please, you've got it wrong. He broke in." But the female officer silently cuffed her. more gently, and led her out. Reagan sobbed. I didn't do anything wrong. But they showed no sympathy. The female officer turned back to me, double-checking my ID. Mr. Mercer, you're the biological father and show no signs of harming the child. You came to protect her. I nodded, voice shaking. Yes, ma'am. I just want my daughter safe. They nodded. Take her and leave immediately for her safety. We'll contact you for full statements later. Get her to a hospital for examination. Relief flooded me, though tension still gripped my chest. Would they fully believe me? As Reagan and Orlando were escorted to the patrol cars, Orlando still cursing, Reagan crying, I stood holding my sobbing daughter, watching the red and blue lights disappear down the empty street. For the first time in years, I felt I truly had a chance to pull my little girl out of the darkness. Alma rested her head on my shoulder. Daddy, they hurt me. I was so scared. I kissed her forehead. It's over, baby. Daddy's taking you home. The patrol cars sped away, leaving us in the quiet night. But the anxiety lingered. Hospital statements, the future. Everything was only just beginning. I carried Alma to the car. Her little body felt frighteningly light, trembling like an autumn leaf in the wind. My heart was still pounding, adrenaline from the fight coursing through my veins, making my limbs stiff and numb. Sweetheart, Daddy's taking you to the hospital, okay? So the doctors can check if you're hurt, I whispered, voice shaking with fear of touching her pain. Alma nodded weakly, burying her face in my chest. Her sobs gradually turned into quiet hiccups. I drove through the night, the quiet streets of Flagstaff lit only by dim yellow lamps, but my mind was in chaos. 4 years apart, and now she was here in my arms, but covered in wounds. Why didn't I come sooner? How could I let this happen to her? Self-recrimination stabbed like knives, tears streamed down my face. Anxiety surged as I thought about the hospital. How serious were the injuries? Would the police call me in? I pressed the accelerator harder, the SUV speeding through unfamiliar streets. Cold Arizona night air rushing in through the cracked window, carrying the scent of desert dust. The moment we left the scene, I headed straight for the nearest hospital, a small medical center in Flagstaff, its neon sign glowing brightly in the dark. I carried Alma into the ER, arms trembling from exhaustion and worry. Help! My daughter's been beaten, I shouted, voice echoing down the sterile white hallway. Nurses rushed over, their faces changed the instant they saw Alma. Curled up, pale, blood seeping through the back of her shirt. My God, why is this child in this condition? One nurse asked, voice full of pity, then quickly wheeled over a gurney. They took her into the pediatric ER. I followed, heart pounding at the thought of leaving her side. Sir, please wait outside. We need to do a full examination, a nurse said. I shook my head. I'm her father. I have to stay with her. They allowed it. I sat by the bed, holding Alma's tiny, ice-cold hand. The doctor, a middle-aged man with silver-rimmed glasses and a grave expression, arrived after a preliminary check. He examined the welts, checked her pulse, asked gentle questions. Alma stayed silent, only nodding or shaking her head, but she flinched and curled up when he touched her back. My heart clenched. I waited anxiously for the results. After finishing, the doctor pulled me into the hallway, face tense. Mr. Mercer, Alma's condition is more serious than it appears. She has multiple old and new bruises, some weeks old, indicating prolonged abuse. She shows psychological instability, fear of touch, startle response to loud noises. Most concerning are signs of deep trauma, possibly from sexual abuse. Each word struck like lightning. I stood frozen, gripping the wall to keep from collapsing. Prolonged abuse? Sexual abuse, I repeated, voice breaking. The doctor nodded. We're required to report this to Child Protective Services. She'll need immediate therapy. Hearing that felt like my heart was being crushed. Pain and rage surged so violently I wanted to scream. How? How could my daughter go through this? I whispered, tears falling uncontrollably. Images flooded back. Orlando swinging the belt, Reagan watching without lifting a finger. Blood boiled inside me. I hated myself for letting her suffer so long. 4 years I thought she was safe with her mother. Instead, she was in hell. I'm her father. How did I not feel it? Why didn't I find her sooner? Guilt stabbed like needles. I wanted to punch the wall. The doctor placed a hand on my shoulder. Stay calm. She'll recover with proper care. Go be with her now. I nodded, wiped my tears, and returned to the room. Alma lay with eyes closed, but her hand still clung to mine. I sat beside her, stroking her hair, whispering, "No one will ever hurt you again. Daddy promises." That night I didn't sleep. The hospital was quiet except for the steady beeping of machines and Alma's breathing. I held my daughter all night on the narrow hospital bed, body aching but unwilling to let go. Every so often she jerked awake crying, eyes wide with terror, tiny hands clutching my shirt as if letting go would let the darkness swallow her again. She murmured in her nightmares and I held her tighter, tears soaking her hair. "It's okay, baby." Daddy chased him away. "Sleep now." I sang the lullaby I used to sing, voice cracking in the silent ward. "Sleep tight, little one, Daddy's here." But my mind raced. Orlando's belt, Reagan's indifference, Alma's desperate call. Anxiety mounted thinking about tomorrow. Police statements, evidence, court. I have to prove it. I have to save her from those monsters. Those endless hours staring at the white ceiling, heart aching with regret and love. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the blinds. Alma's wounds were bandaged. She slept more peacefully. I asked the nurses, kind women with compassionate eyes, to watch her. "I'll be right back," I promised, kissing her forehead. "Be good, sweetheart." Then I set out to do what had to be done, gather evidence. My heart raced. I knew this was the real fight. I couldn't let Orlando and Reagan get away with it. I couldn't let Alma return to that hell. I drove back to Orlando's neighborhood, beautiful homes, manicured lawns, but to me it was shrouded in darkness. I knocked on every neighbor's door. At first they were wary, doors opened only a crack, suspicious eyes. "Who are you? We don't know anything." They were afraid. Orlando was rich, powerful, known for his temper, a local big shot with connections. I didn't give up. "I'm Darwin Mercer, Alma's real father. My daughter has been abused. I need witnesses to save her." Their eyes changed, from suspicion to pity, then anger. One by one they spoke, voices trembling but sincere. A neighbor holding a coffee mug said, "We heard furniture being thrown," Reagan screaming at the child, "You're so bad." I saw Alma in the yard with bruises, but she claimed she fell off her bike. Another added, "Orlando was drunk all the time." Shouting echoed through the whole neighborhood. Poor Alma often sat alone outside, eyes red from crying. They signed statements. Some promised to testify in court. I thanked them, tears falling. I had no idea my daughter had suffered like this while I was miles away. Anxiety spiked thinking about court. These testimonies would be my weapons. I went next to Alma's elementary school, a small campus with a playground full of laughing children. I walked into the principal's office, voice shaking. "I'm Alma Mercer's father. I need to speak to her teacher." They brought me to her homeroom teacher, a kind-faced, middle-aged woman with glasses. When she heard the story, she sighed heavily. I suspected for a long time. Alma often came to class anxious, flinching when anyone touched her shoulder, sometimes bursting into tears for no reason. She drew dark pictures, adults hitting children. Other teachers chimed in. We noticed bruises on her arms. She always said she fell. We were about to report to CPS, but Mrs. Reagan came in furious, threatening to sue if we meddled in her family. She said she had the right to discipline her child. My blood boiled. I gripped the chair so hard my knuckles went white. "Why didn't you report sooner?" I asked, voice shaking with rage. The teacher lowered her head. "We were scared. Orlando has influence here. But now that you're here, we'll testify. All of us." Every word was another knife in my heart. I had no idea my once happy, smiling daughter had been living in terror, flinching at the slightest touch. I sat in the school office, tears streaming, mind reeling. They gave me records, absences, behavioral reports. I photocopied everything, heartbreaking. On the drive back to the hospital, I drove slowly, thinking about the years I'd missed. I was rich and successful, but my daughter had been with her mother and that monster. I pulled over and punched the steering wheel. I have to be strong. For her. On the third day, when Alma was stronger, the welts less red, able to eat some porridge, I sat beside her bed and asked as gently as I could, terrified of reopening her wounds. "Baby, can you tell Daddy what happened at home? I promise I'll protect you." Alma looked at me, lips trembling, eyes filling with tears. Then she threw herself into my arms and sobbed like the dam had finally broken. Between gasps, she told me everything. Beatings for tiny mistakes, spilling milk, forgetting to clean her room, or sometimes for no reason at all, just because Orlando was drunk and angry. "He hit me with the belt with his hands. It hurt so much, Daddy." Her voice grew smaller, and sometimes at night he would come into my room, touch me, in places he wasn't supposed to. I was scared, I pushed him away, but he told me to shut up. I went rigid, every muscle shaking. Sexual abuse? Of my daughter? Blood rushed to my head. I clenched my fists until they bled, eyes burning, jaw locked against the rage exploding inside. Voice trembling, I asked, "My God, did Mommy know?" Alma whispered, "Mommy knew, but she brushed it off. She told me not to make things up, that it was love. She said if I told anyone, she'd abandon me." I pulled Alma against my chest, heart shattering into 1,000 pieces, tears soaking her hair. But in that pain, an unbreakable resolve formed. I would protect her no matter the cost, even if I had to face the entire world. "No one will ever hurt you again. I promise," I whispered, stroking her back. My mind raced with plans, court, evidence, justice. The anxiety was overwhelming. This was the final battle. I sat by Alma's hospital bed, watching her finally drift into sleep after her crying. But my own eyes refused to close. That night in the Flagstaff hospital, cold air, the steady beep of machines, the faint smell of antiseptic, I spent every hour compiling every piece of evidence. I spread the documents across the small bedside table. Neighbors' written statements, photocopies of school reports, medical photos of her injuries, and most crucially, the audio recording of Alma's own account on my phone. The next morning, I submitted the entire thick dossier to CPS, Child Protective Services, and the Flagstaff Police. I drove first to the CPS office, a modern glass building in the city center, heart pounding as I walked in. The caseworker, a middle-aged woman with glasses and a gentle voice, took the file, flipped through a few pages, and her face changed. "Mr. Mercer, this is extremely serious. We'll treat it as an emergency." I told her briefly, voice shaking. "My daughter has been abused. I have everything here. Please help her." She nodded, made copies, and promised immediate action. Then I went to the police station where the female officer from that night was waiting. "Mr. Mercer, you brought the evidence?" she asked, eyes lighting up when she saw the stack. I handed it over and added more details. Neighbors, teachers, my daughter's own words, everything proving Orlando and Reagan's abuse. She took notes and called her supervisor. "This is airtight. We're opening a full investigation." I left the station lighter in spirit but still anxious. Would they be arrested? I returned to the hospital and hugged Alma. "It's done, baby. They'll pay for what they did." She gave a weak smile. "You're the best, Daddy." Within 48 hours, arrest warrants were issued for Orlando and Reagan. The officer called me. "Mr. Mercer, warrants are out. They'll be taken in today." My heart raced as I imagined it. And it happened. Local news followed it closely. I watched on the hospital TV. Footage of Orlando in handcuffs, face twisted in fury, shouting as he was shoved into a patrol car in front of his mansion. "Do you know who I am? I'll sue every one of you." Reporters swarmed, cameras flashing. Reagan was arrested soon after, pale, sobbing. "It wasn't me. He was just disciplining her." But the officers pushed her into the car without sympathy. The story spread like wildfire. Wealthy businessman Orlando Langston arrested for child abuse. Victim is his wife's daughter. Both were taken into custody pending trial. I held Alma as we watched the news. She trembled slightly. "They're caught, sweetheart," she whispered. "They can't hurt me anymore." The case quickly drew national attention. From Flagstaff to Arizona and then nationwide, CNN and Fox News ran segments. 10-year-old girl abused in wealthy household. Biological father drives from Denver to rescue her. Social media exploded, Twitter, Facebook, with the hashtag Justice for Alma. How can anyone beat a child like that? Rich and still evil. Her own mother just watched? Disgusting. Thousands of comments, shares, calls for justice. Reading them hurt. My daughter at the center of a storm. But I was grateful. The pressure would force the court to be strict. The trial day arrived. The Flagstaff courthouse was packed. Reporters crowded outside, cameras ready. Local residents, neighbors, even Alma's teachers filled the seats in support. The atmosphere was electric. Murmurs spreading, the smell of coffee from paper cups, harsh fluorescent lights. I walked in holding Alma's hand tightly, heart pounding. She wore a clean dress, hair neatly tied, but her eyes still held fear. I knelt down. "You're so brave, baby. Daddy's right here. He'll never touch you again." We sat on the plaintiff's side. My lawyer, a sharp-eyed middle-aged man, patted my shoulder. "The evidence is ironclad. We've got this." But I was still nervous, scanning the room. The judge high on the bench, the solemn jury, the sea of people behind us. Orlando was brought in, handcuffs clinking, expensive suit now rumpled. His face was unshaven and furious, but his eyes betrayed panic when he saw the wall of cameras pointed at him. Flashes went off. He lowered his head and muttered curses. He looks pathetic, I thought, but felt no pity. He deserved every bit of it. Reagan entered next, uncuffed but under guard, face pale, eyes ringed with dark circles. The arrogance was gone. No red lipstick, no designer dress, only panic as she realized judgment was coming. She glanced at Alma, lips moving as if to speak, then turned away. My heart ached. This was once my wife, my child's mother, now an accomplice. The judge, an older woman with a stern voice, banged the gavel. "Court is in session. The prosecution may begin." The prosecutor presented the evidence. Photos of injuries, medical reports, witness statements. Neighbors took the stand. I heard the belt at night, the child crying. Teachers. Alma was terrified in class, constant bruises. Orlando and Reagan's defense tried to spin it. Just strict discipline, not abuse. Mr. Langston was intoxicated and lost control. But the prosecutor fired back. Drunk or not, there's no excuse for beating a child. And sexual abuse. The courtroom gasped. When the judge called for victim testimony, Alma bravely stood. My heart pounded. I squeezed her hand. "You can do this, baby." Her voice trembled, but every word was clear. She told everything. "Mr. Orlando hit me with the belt because I called my dad. At night he touched me in places he wasn't supposed to. Mommy told me to be quiet, that it was love." The room fell dead silent. Many people cried openly. A neighbor wiped tears. Reporters scribbled furiously. When Alma finished, she sat and hugged me. I kissed her forehead. "I'm so proud of you, my brave girl." Physical evidence, testimony, photographs, and witnesses made every defense lie collapse. Their lawyers tried. "The child is making it up." The judge shook her head. "The evidence is overwhelming." After tense deliberation, I waited in the hallway, heart in my throat, holding Alma and whispering old stories to keep her calm. The judge delivered the verdict. Her voice rang out. "Orlando Langston is sentenced to 16 years imprisonment for child abuse, assault, and molestation of a minor. No possibility of early release." Orlando slumped, face ashen, dragged away in handcuffs amid camera flashes. Reagan was stripped of all parental rights. permanently barred from contact with Alma, ordered to pay hundreds of thousands in medical and emotional damages, and placed on CPS's unfit parent registry. When the sentence was read, Reagan collapsed to the floor, sobbing and begging, "No, please, Alma, Mommy's sorry." But it was far too late. Officers pulled her to her feet and led her away. I held Alma's hand tightly as the entire courtroom rose in applause, a wave of support. Alma leaned her head on my shoulder. For the first time in years, her eyes held no fear, only safety. We walked out of the courthouse into the gentle Arizona afternoon sunlight. I lifted Alma into my arms, holding her close to make up for all the pain she had endured. The years of hell, the welts, the nightmares. She gave a weak smile, tiny arms around my neck. "Daddy, thank you for saving me. I love you so much." In that moment, under the warm golden light, desert breeze carrying the scent of wildflowers, I knew our new life had truly begun. No more darkness, only the future together. After the trial, Reagan's and the Warren family's reputation collapsed completely, like a sandcastle washed away by the tide. The news spread like wildfire, first local Arizona channels, then Colorado, and soon national outlets. Shocking child abuse case, tycoon Orlando imprisoned, ex-wife stripped of maternal rights. Reporters dug into the past and everything came crashing down. Quentin and Bianca Warren, Reagan's parents, were exposed for covering up their daughter's affair and abandoning their son-in-law at his parents' funeral years ago. Headlines revisited the story. Warren family knew about daughter's infidelity but stayed silent, even drove grieving son-in-law away when he begged for help. The public was furious. Neighbors in their wealthy Denver enclave whispered and openly sneered. How could they skip their in-law's funeral and cover up the abuse of their own granddaughter? Quentin, owner of a real estate firm, lost major contracts. Clients boycotted. "We don't do business with heartless people." Bianca, a high society homemaker, was shunned by friends. Afternoon tea parties became empty, phones went silent. They withdrew from the world. Doors locked, curtains drawn all day, only venturing out for groceries and hats and sunglasses. I heard about it through the news. My heart felt mixed, anger for how they once despised me, but also pity. They brought it on themselves, I thought, yet I felt no satisfaction. Life had taught me that karma arrives late but in full. Reagan's fate was even more pitiful. She was fired from her advertising job the first week after the trial, personal image damaging the brand. Every other company rejected her applications. The scandal had spread everywhere. Interviews were canceled at the last minute. "We don't hire accomplices to child abuse," one recruiter told her bluntly. She drifted through life in a cheap motel, ostracized by society. Old friends turned away, neighbors gossiped, even the local supermarket gave her looks of contempt. My lawyer told me she tried to appeal but failed. The compensation she owed Alma bankrupted her. "She's like a ghost now," he said. I didn't contact her, but I wondered with a mix of dread and curiosity, is she sorry yet? Her life, once luxurious beside Orlando, had fallen to the bottom, proof of retribution. Yet I felt no joy, only focus on Alma and our future. Meanwhile, I brought Alma home to Denver. On the long flight, she slept on my shoulder, clutching my shirt. When we arrived, the spacious house I'd bought after becoming wealthy felt warmer than ever. I had decorated her room in her favorite pink, toys, books, everything new. "Is this our house, Daddy?" she asked, eyes wide. "Yes, sweetheart. This is our home forever." But I knew the psychological wounds ran deep. She flinched at loud noises, feared the dark, cried at night. I took her to a child trauma therapist the very first week, a gentlewoman at a Denver center. "Alma will need time, Mr. Mercer, but she'll be okay," she said after the first session. We went twice a week, drawing, storytelling to release the fear. Day by day, her health and spirit improved. From cowering in terror, she began laughing again, running in the garden, telling school stories. "Daddy, today I drew you saving me." She proudly showed me a colorful picture. I hugged her, tears falling. My brave girl. During therapy, I waited outside, heart racing as she recounted the horrors, yet it was how she healed. "I'm not scared anymore because Daddy protects me," she said after a few months. My heart warmed. My life now existed for her. Life for father and daughter became warmer than ever. Breakfast filled with laughter. I made smiley-face pancakes. Alma poured syrup and giggled, "Daddy, your pancakes look funny." Evenings we read to each other. I read Harry Potter while she leaned against my chest, eyes shining. For the first time in years, my life, once drowned in darkness, lit up again because of Alma's smile. We went to parks, rode bikes, cooked together, small things but full of meaning. On nights she slept peacefully, I sat by her bed, stroking her hair, whispering, "I love you more than anything." The early anxiety, nightmares, Reagan returning, gradually faded. My wealth now provided for her, good schools, art classes, summer trips. My life felt complete, except for the ache of missing my parents. But Alma filled that void. One cold, rainy afternoon in Denver, about a year after the trial, rain drumming on the roof, wind whistling through cracks while I cooked dinner, the smell of roasting meat filling the house. And Alma drew at the table, there was a faint knock at the door. My heart jumped. Who could that be in this weather? Reporters? I wiped my hands and opened the door, and froze. Reagan stood there, gaunt, hollow-cheeked, rain-soaked, tangled hair, eyes wild and lost. She was thin, wearing an old coat, all traces of her former beauty and pride gone. "Darwin, please let me in. I just want to talk," she said, voice hoarse and trembling. I stared for a long time, anger and pity warring inside me, then stepped aside. She entered, collapsed onto the sofa and sobbed into her hands. Alma saw her and shrank back in fear. I hugged my daughter. "Go upstairs, sweetheart. Daddy will talk to Mommy." Reagan broke down, words spilling between sobs. "They kicked me out of the mansion. Orlando. He died in prison after a little over a year. Heart attack, I guess old age." My heart gave a brief twinge at the name. Orlando was dead. Perhaps that was his karma. She continued, voice exhausted. "He left me nothing. The house, cars, money, everything went to his legal wife and children. I was just the mistress. I have no rights. They threw me out with nothing." She sobbed harder, shoulders shaking with utter despair. I sat across from her, listening but unmoved. She looked up, eyes red. "Darwin, I was wrong. I'm so sorry. I want to come back. Start over. Please give me a chance. Let me see Alma." She fell to her knees, clutching my legs. "I'll change. For Alma." I looked at her for a long time, heart aching yet cold. Then I asked the one question she couldn't answer. "When I begged you to stay, why did you turn away? When I lost my parents, you shoved divorce papers in my chest at their funeral. And when Alma begged you to save her, why did you stand by and let Orlando beat and molest her?" Reagan went still, mouth opening but no words coming. She collapsed into louder sobs, kneeling. I know I was wrong. Please forgive me." I simply shook my head, stood and opened the door. "Go and never come back. You chose your path. Now live with the consequences." She crawled out into the rain, soaked and broken. I closed the door, leaned against the wall and cried, not for her, but for finally closing the darkest chapter of my life. Alma ran downstairs and hugged me. "Is Mommy gone?" "Yes, sweetheart. It's just us now. And that's enough." From that day on, father and daughter lived in peace and happiness. Alma grew up surrounded by my love and protection, excellent student, piano lessons, many friends. Her psychological scars faded with therapy and love. I worked less and spent more time with her, camping trips, teaching her small investments. My girl has to be independent. My days were filled with sunshine and her laughter. One beautiful afternoon, I took Alma to visit her grandparents' graves, a peaceful cemetery on the Denver outskirts, wind whispering through the trees. She placed flowers and whispered, "Grandma, Grandpa, we came to see you." Standing before their silent headstones, looking back on the journey of loss and resilience we had survived, I realized a profound truth. Betrayal and suffering do not define a person. What defines us is how we rise from the ruins and keep walking. From losing my parents, my wife, my child, my job, I had been reborn as a multimillionaire and saved my daughter from hell. Looking at Alma, once trapped in darkness, now smiling again, hair dancing in the wind, eyes bright, I understood that love, duty, and perseverance always triumph, and a father strong enough can shield his child from any storm. Before the quiet graves, I silently sent a message to myself and to anyone walking a similar path. Leave toxic relationships behind. Stop clinging to those who hurt you again and again. Only when you dare to close the old door can you open the path to the peace and life you and your loved ones truly deserve.